Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Frank's Amazing Podcast. I am your host, Frank Cagino. The New York Mets have finally made a couple moves that are actually worth talking about and pressing the record button and do the editing and posting and sharing and all the fun stuff that goes into recording these podcasts. And if you do like them, make sure to leave a like, let me know, comment on some feedback on what you thought of the topic of the podcast and what have you, and anything sports related willing to talk about. And if you are new, please subscribe to keep up with the other stuff that is going on, not only with the Mets, but with the Yankees, with the rest of baseball, with football, with basketball. A lot of good stuff coming as always. But for the Mets, like I said, they made some moves. First, getting Michael Wacha on a cheap deal, 1 year of $3 million guaranteed, with the possibility of incentives to some people saying to get up to almost $10 million. Now, yesterday when that happened, I was like, really? This is the Mets' answer to losing Zach Wheeler? I thought that was a big mistake because it's just like you lose somebody in Wheeler who was a pretty good pitcher for you. I think that's something that people aren't talking about enough. They're like, oh my gosh, Wheeler got so much money. He got a lot of money because he was a good pitcher. That's the way it goes, especially with pitching. Look at what Strasburg got, what Garrett Cole got, what Wheeler got, and then the thing that I want to get to later is what Syndergaard could potentially get. I think that's something that is extremely important, especially after what just happened to Wheeler. So it's just like Wacha is nowhere near the pitcher that Wheeler was and is. So right there, you already lost a couple games in my opinion. And the other thing is that Michael Wacha has not been reliable. He was hurt in the postseason. That's why the Cardinals didn't even use him. So I really did not like the signing at all. Then, wake up to Rick Porcello is now in the Mets. And now I feel a little differently because I know that doesn't mean that Wacha is the guy replacing Wheeler. Rick Porcello is more so the guy that will be replacing Wheeler because his is 1 year, $10 million with no incentives. It's $10 million and that's it. You know what I mean? But for Porcello, you feel a little better about him. He's a better pitcher than Michael Wacha, kind of. And the reason I say kind of is because Rick Porcello, the thing about it is that year after year, he just finishes with these high ERAs that you don't like. I mean, last season, it was 5.52, and that is not pretty, especially considering the rest of the Mets pitchers' ERA. Wheeler was under 4. Matz was right at 4. Syndergaard was a little above 4, which really is unacceptable for him. Stroman, as it meant, under 4. DeGrom was in the 2s. So to have a guy then go 5.5 when you were at 3.9, that's a run and a half that you're adding, earned run average. But the thing that Porcello does give the Mets that Michael Wacha does not is durability, more reliability. Just the fact that he will be out there every 5 games, I think is really important because one of the things that the Mets has had a flaw in the past couple years is starting rotation depth. They have not had any. And they've been extremely fortunate and lucky that their starters have been able to go the whole season. That DeGrom has not had any major injuries, and you got to hope that stays the same. Same with Noah and Matz, Wheeler. Like these guys in the past 2 years, they've been very healthy. And because of that, the Mets haven't really had to worry about starting rotation depth because they haven't had to use it in sporadic starts. They've had, Walter Lockett, Chris Flexen, Corey Oswald. I mean, they've been Drew Gagnon. I mean, we've seen a lot of different pitchers for the Mets take over when these guys, need a spot start here or there, or maybe they have a little nagging injury that they need to miss a start or two. They've been very lucky. There hasn't been like a season or a few months where they've had to rely on someone that is not in that starting 5. Now, if that were to happen, number one, it's most likely not going to happen to Rick Porcello because he has been so durable, so you don't let things happen to him. But if it were to happen to one of the young guys, which you really hope that it doesn't, at least Michael Wacha could fill in and isn't like those other guys that really aren't that good at pitchers. So that's going to be where he's worth the $3 million. And was one of the things I heard someone say, I can't remember who it was, but it's just like if Michael Wacha does end up getting the $10 million, that's pretty good news for the Mets because that means that Michael Wacha performed. So, I mean, that's all you can really ask when you think of how many guys the Mets bring in, especially recently the past 5 years, where they come in and they're not good. They're not the guys they used to be. Perfect start pitching example. Think of Jason Vargas. I mean, this was a guy who was an all-star for the Kansas City Royals, didn't have a good second half, wasn't good with the Mets. I mean, he was okay in the first half for the Mets in 2019, but he still was not good enough. They traded him, and you know the rest of the story. But still, it's just like you hope that Wacha fills in nicely. But one of the other things that's been talked about is this idea that now that the Mets have Porcello and they have Michael Wacha, that they could potentially trade a starting pitcher that is not named Jacob deGrom. So that means that Syndergaard is available. I've seen Steven Matz's name thrown around, and for me, I would consider Marcus Stroman's name because now that you are starting to get an idea of what the starting pitcher market is like, I don't know how you retain these starting pitchers. I have to be honest with you, because you're already paying DeGrom over $100 million. Rightfully so, because DeGrom is worth $300 million, because he's one of the top pitchers. He's worth just as much as Cole is. That's my personal opinion, because one thing about Jacob DeGrom that I think is not talked about enough is I personally believe that Jacob DeGrom could age better than a lot of other pitchers, because we've seen games where Jacob DeGrom does not have his velocity but still has the results. So that tells you as DeGrom gets older and he's not throwing the 99, 98, 97 mile per hour fastball, he could still be successful, which is something very, very important, because somebody like Noah Syndergaard, as of right now, as he currently is as a pitcher, I don't think that is something that he is capable of. And with Madison Stroman, I have no idea. So I know that DeGrom could age well, so I know he's worth re-signing and is worth every penny as someone that you could count on for a long time. And for Syndergaard, he's been so inconsistent for me. I'm not a fan of him. I believe he is overrated, because people talk about like he's got Cy Young caliber stuff and he's this great pitcher. And he just doesn't give me the results. And when he doesn't give me the results, all he gives me is excuse after excuse. He blames the catcher. He blames the weather. He blames his health. He blames Dr. Phil. He blames the pitching coach. He blames everybody but Noah Syndergaard. And it's always something. He's just always in the news for some kind of reason. He's always talking, saying bad things, complaining. And personally, I just don't like that. I think there's no need for that. So for me, I know that for a fact Noah Syndergaard is going to ask for over $100 million, and with the way he is viewed, and let's say Noah has a pretty decent year, he's in the threes, which he should be, hopefully low threes. If he is, and I know he's not free agent eligible quite yet, but I know for a fact that some team would pay Noah Syndergaard at least $200 million. Now, would the Mets pay Noah Syndergaard $200 million? Probably not. Now, the other thing, people saying, oh, but Steve Cohen. I understand why Mets fans are excited, and I'm a little bit too, but we have nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing to tell us that we know for a fact that Steve Cohen is going to spend a lot of money. We don't know that. We really don't. And what if he doesn't get approved? Because that's something that still has got to go through. So you don't know for a fact that Steve Cohen is going to give Syndergaard $200 million, and he's going to sign Mookie Betts, and he's going to re-sign Alonso, he's going to re-sign McNeil and Conforto and all these guys, and he's going to re-sign Steven Matz and get other additional big-time free agents, get a big reliever, get another catcher, whatever it is, get a center fielder. I mean, we don't know that for a fact. So I think people do need to calm down on that. I believe that you have to be prepared for the future. And I think as it currently stands, especially with what Brodie Van Wagner just finished saying, that the Mets are not going to make any additional help to the bullpen because he believes that having Lugo and Gesellman are the additions, even though they were there all of last year, and that obviously was not good enough at all. I mean, I believe that's a big problem. And if the Mets are going to roll with the team they currently have, they will not make the playoffs. I'm going to go on record saying that. And no one's going to project them to, especially with the way the division is. The Braves are going to kill them. The Nationals, they lost Andy Rendon. That's a big deal. But the Nationals are still going to be good. The Phillies are improving as we speak. I mean, they're getting Didi. They get Joe Girardi. And I believe the Phillies are going to do some other things. They have some other tricks up their sleeve. And the rest of the league is not going to be a cakewalk. The Dodgers they're going to be tough. The Cardinals are going to be tough. You're going to have to face good teams. And the Cubs are going to be good. The Brewers are going to be good. So, it was like we had last year where the Mets were behind so many teams. Then they got in front of them, and they were right there, but they weren't quite good enough as the Cubs or the Brewers or the Nationals. They're going to run into the same exact thing. And that was with a legendary year from DeGrom. That was with 50 home runs from Pete Alonso. That was with the all-star performance of Jeff McNeil batting 300. That was with J.D. Davis batting 300. That was with the healthy Ramos batting almost 300. That was with an improved Rosario. They had so many things go right. The starting pitching was healthy the whole year. Didn't have any major injuries to the bullpen. Gesellman got hurt at the end of the year, but unfortunately Diaz was perfectly fine. Lugo was healthy. Familia, not so much, but it didn't really matter. But still, they had so many things go right, and it still wasn't enough. And the fact that these other teams are getting better and the Mets have not. The Mets are not better than they were. That's the other thing. I mean, Marisnik, Wacha, and Porcello, this Met team is not better than the team it was last year. So I really think that's a problem. One of the big X factors, I said it last year, was Cespedes, and I don't even think you can count on him quite yet. Until he's out there and performing, then we could talk about them being better. If he is, Mets have a better chance to playoffs. If he's not, they don't. So I just think that if the team isn't going to make the playoffs, and then you're going to be running into some tough spots where you're going to have more expired free agents, you're going to have Marcus Stroman's deal expiring, and then you got to work with more arbitration guys and who's going to be off the books. I just think that you really, really have to trade Noah Syndergaard, especially if he has a good year this year. If he does, you trade him. You have to do it because you're not going to pay him $200 million unless Steve Cohen does. If he's not willing to do it, you have to trade him because of what just happened with Zach Wheeler. If you could get a team to overpay and give you that center fielder for a lower price, or the catcher, or more help in the bullpen, or a shortstop or third base, I don't care what the position is, the Mets have got to do it. So, I mean, that is the way I view it. I hope that they don't trade any of the starting pitchers. And I just really don't like, well, one of the other things, the whole idea of trading Jed Lowry plus a Dominic Smith for salary relief. I don't like that at all. Unless they trade Lowry and Dominic Smith and then sign Betances or Daniel Hudson. I don't think they're going to get Betances right now because somebody else is going to get him before the Mets free up that salary. So I think he's off the books right now. Daniel Hudson is a guy I still like because, like Rendon leaving, hurt the Nationals again. Take away Daniel Hudson. He was their whole bullpen. He was the guy that came through constantly because the Nationals had a bunch of bullpen struggles. The Mets did a good job hitting off of Sean Doolittle. And the only guy that was reliable every single game for Washington was Daniel Hudson. He was good in the playoffs. Why not get him? He's a proven guy. I know relievers could be inconsistent, but he's better than what you have that is not named Seth Lugo. So I really would like to see that. If it costs Dominic Smith, it costs Dominic Smith. I mean, what are you going to do? There's no place for him on this team right now. I would much prefer to have Daniel Hudson so I can at least have something in the bullpen. I just need somebody. I mean, I'm not asking for a lot here. And neither are Met fans. So it's unfortunate that we still have another year of, like, the Wilpons. And I know everybody's really excited for Cohen, but calm down because he hasn't done anything yet. And until he does, we have to, have the expectations of same old, because if in 2 years the Mets still kind of stink and are not making the playoffs and they lose Syndergaard in free agency because Cohen doesn't pay him, don't say I didn't tell you so. But if they make any other moves, I'll be there to talk about it. We'll talk about football, any other big baseball moves, mostly with the New York teams. But until next time, have a good one, everybody.